The tower is the oldest thing still standing on Earth, not the oldest thing we built. That distinction belongs to the Varath grid, the first orbital ring, assembled in the second construction period and expanded continuously for 300,000 years until it became something the original engineers would not have recognized from a diagram. The tower is simply the oldest thing we kept. 11 stories, poured concrete, rebar, a stairwell that smells of damp plaster when it rains. We sealed the flats in the third generation and turned the building into a monument, but we kept the smell. Some things you do not optimize away. I have worked the Solon Estate Monument for 19 years. My title is Urban Continuity Surveyor, which means I walk the perimeter, log the structural readings, and file a quarterly report confirming that the tower has not changed. It hasn't. That's the job. I was on my third circuit of the morning when the Vethaan vessel came down. They didn't broadcast. No approach signal, no query on the planetary grid, no request for landing clearance. The ship simply descended through the cloud layer, over the estate grounds, and settled in the old car park. The preserved one, with the faded yellow lines still stenciled on the tarmac, as if it had a right to be there. It was a mid-sized administrative vessel, the kind with no weapons hardpoints and a lot of filing space. Colonial bureaucracy made airworthy. I had seen the hull classification before, in the archive. I recognized it, the way you recognize a photograph of something that happened to your great-grandmother. There were 4 of them. The Vethaan do not look like anything Earth mythology ever invented for them. They are tall and thin-limbed, with a faint iridescence to their skin that changes with the light, and they move with the careful precision of people accustomed to gravity that does not quite match their biology. The one in front carried a data tablet the size of a serving tray. He was reading from it as he walked toward me, which told me everything I needed to know about why they had come. I stopped walking my circuit and waited. He looked up when he was 10 meters away. His eyes moved from me to the tower, then to the skyline behind the tower, then back to me. The skyline behind me is not subtle. The nearest residential stack runs 4 kilometers high. The Varath warship anchorage is in low orbit, but on a clear morning, you can pick out the hull profiles of the 3 heaviest cruisers against the blue. That morning was clear. He looked at the tablet. He looked at the skyline again. I let him. This is, he began, and then stopped. He consulted the tablet. Solon Resettlement Zone 14, designated Human Habitation Cluster, filed for decommission and archival reclamation under the Vethaan Resettlement Authority Charter, conditional on confirmed vacancy. That's the address, I said. He was still looking at the skyline. One of the cruisers caught the sun and threw a long glint off its dorsal plating. At 14 kilometers, it is not large against the sky. At 14 kilometers, it is still the largest moving object a person can see without instruments. You are the site custodian? He asked. Urban Continuity Surveyor? I said. Marin Doss, 19th year of service, Solon Estate Monument, Earth, Sol System, Vethaan Resettlement Zone 14. He noted that. I watched him note it. His stylus moved across the tablet, and I wondered how many centuries it had been since anyone had updated the resettlement record to show that the zone was occupied. 480,000 years, as it turned out. That was the figure in the original filing. The Vethaan Resettlement Authority had designated the Solon Estate and 11,000 similar housing clusters as temporary human habitation zones in the years before they withdrew from this part of the galaxy. The filing language was careful and bloodless, the way all colonial administration language is careful and bloodless. Transitional accommodation units. Pending permanent resettlement to approved zones. Duration of occupancy. Not to exceed the authority's active administrative period in the Sol sector. And then the authority had left, and the administrative period had lapsed, and the filing had sat in a bureaucratic archive for 480,000 years, and apparently no one had thought to close it out until now. We were notified, the administrator said, that the resettlement zones in the Sol sector had passed vacancy threshold. Standard archival reclamation. We are here to formally close the Solon site and retrieve any recoverable documentation for the authority's historical record. Recoverable documentation, I said. Correct. I looked at the tower. 11 stories. Poured concrete. The smell of damp plaster when it rains. The zone is occupied, I said. He looked at the tablet. He looked at me. He looked, again, at the skyline. Our records indicate. Your records are 480,000 years old, I said. The zone has been continuously occupied since the original filing. We have documentation. I pulled my own tablet from my jacket pocket. Not a Vethaan-style tray. A standard-issue surveyor's pad, scuffed at the corners, with the Solon Estate Monument's administrative seal on the back. I had loaded the relevant files that morning, because our orbital monitoring station had tracked the Vethaan vessel from the edge of the system, and we had known they were coming for 11 days. We had been preparing for this specific visit. Not this visit, not this ship, not these 4 individuals, but this type of visit for approximately 6,000 years, which is how long it took our legal scholars to identify that the original Vethaan Resettlement Charter contained a continuous occupancy clause that the authority had never formally repealed. If the designated zones remained occupied without interruption, the Charter's own language recognized the occupant's sovereign claim to the territory of occupancy. Territorial limits undefined. Expansion of occupancy acknowledged as an extension of the original zone. 14 systems, 400 billion people, all of it documented under the Vethaan Resettlement Authority's own paperwork, in the authority's own filing language, in an unbroken chain of occupancy records, running from the original resettlement notice to this morning's survey log, which I had filed 40 minutes ago from the 3rd Circuit of the Solon Estate perimeter. I handed him the tablet. He read for a long time. One of the others, a younger administrator, I thought, from the way she stood, leaned in and read with him. I watched her eyes move down the document and then stop. She looked at the residential stack on the northern horizon, the 4-kilometer tower, with its 10 million occupied units, and its transit ring at the halfway mark, and its observation platform at the top, that on a clear day gives you a line of sight all the way to the coast. Then she looked back at the document. "This is," she said. "Continuous," I said. "Not one missed filing, not one generation gap. The Solon Estate Monitoring Office has submitted a quarterly occupancy return under the original Vethaan Charter format since the 2nd generation after your authority withdrew. We updated the form when the form changed. We never stopped." The senior administrator handed my tablet back. His iridescent skin had gone a flat, mauve tone that I recognized from the xenobiological briefings as the Vethaan equivalent of going pale. "The expanded territories," he said. "The 14 systems, documented as extensions of Zone 14 under the Continuous Occupancy Clause," I said. "Subfilings available on request. The complete archive index runs to approximately 9 petabytes. We can arrange a data transfer to your vessel before you depart." He looked at the tower one more time. I have tried, in the years since, to understand what he saw when he looked at it. 11 stories, poured concrete. A building that by any reasonable standard should have been demolished 479,000 years ago. We had kept it because the 3rd generation decided that the thing you survive in deserves to be remembered, and every generation after them had agreed. He asked if we had a formal response prepared. I told him we had been preparing the response for 6,000 years, and that it was ready whenever he wanted to receive it. We transferred the archive that afternoon. The Vethaan vessel lifted before evening and did not rebroadcast on any planetary frequency before it left the system. I filed my closing survey log at the end of the day. 4th Circuit complete, no structural changes to the monument, occupancy status confirmed, and walked home through the grounds of the Solon Estate with the old car park on my left and the tower on my right, the concrete dark in the fading light, the smell of coming rain already in the air. We had never left. Not one day, not one generation. We had filled 11 stories and then a planet and then 14 systems, and we had kept filing the paperwork the whole time, because that is what you do when you intend to still be here when someone comes to check. The rain came while I was walking. I didn't hurry.